welcome to my channel. I would love it if you subscribe to my video right now. Thank you. Let's start. First, let us explain what perspective drawing is. Perspective drawing is a technique used to depict spatial depth, or perspective. In other words, it allows you to accurately draw a three-dimensional object onto a two-dimensional plane. There are typically three types of perspective drawing: one-point perspective, two-point perspective, and three-point perspective. So is more about shapes you should practice for drawing better. One-point perspective. One-point perspective is often used for compositions that look at objects from the front. Lines extending from the foreground to the background gather, converge. At one point, the point of convergence is called the vanishing point. The vanishing point will always be on the horizontal line, or eye level of the scene, which represents the height of the eye or camera of the observer. Remember, you can only draw three-dimensional objects in perspective. This video is a guide on drawing more 3D-like objects. Watch to the end on the ways you can draw forms and shapes. Perspective works by representing the light that passes from a scene through an imaginary rectangle, realized as the plane of the painting, to the viewer's eye, as if a viewer were looking through a window and painting what is seen directly onto the windowpane. If viewed from the same spot as the windowpane was painted, the painted image would be identical to what was seen through the unpainted window. Each painted object in the scene is thus a flat, scaled-down version of the objects on the other side of the window. Because each portion of the painted object lies on the straight line from the viewer's eye to the equivalent portion of the real object it represents, the viewer sees no difference, sans depth perception, between the painted scene on the windowpane and the view of the real scene. All perspective drawings assume the viewer is a certain distance away from the drawing. Objects are scaled relative to that viewer. An object is often not scaled evenly. A circle often appears as an ellipse and a square can appear as a trapezoid. This distortion is referred to as foreshortening. Perspective drawings have a horizon line, which is often implied. This line, directly opposite the viewer's eye, represents objects infinitely far away. They have shrunk, in the distance, to the infinitesimal thickness of a line. It is analogous to, and named after, the Earth horizon. Any perspective representation of a scene that includes parallel lines has one or more vanishing points in a perspective drawing. A one-point perspective drawing means that the drawing has a single vanishing point, usually, though not necessarily, directly opposite the viewer's eye and usually, though not necessarily, on the horizon line. All lines parallel with the viewer's line of sight recede to the horizon towards this vanishing point. This is the standard, receding railroad tracks phenomenon. A two-point drawing would have lines parallel to two different angles. Any number of vanishing points are possible in a drawing, one for each set of parallel lines that are at an angle relative to the plane of the drawing. Perspective images are calculated assuming a particular vanishing point. In order for the resulting image to appear identical to the original scene, a viewer of the perspective must view the image from the exact vantage point used in the calculations relative to the image. This cancels out what would appear to be distortions in the image when viewed from a different point. These apparent distortions are more pronounced away from the center of the image as the angle between a projected ray, from the seam to the eye, becomes more acute relative to the picture plane. In practice, unless the viewer chooses an extreme angle, like looking at it from the bottom corner of the window, the perspective normally looks more or less correct. Please subscribe if you haven't. Thanks.